Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Inside the Message. Yeah, I think we're going to be doing that, right? That's cool. We like it. I think you like it.
I like it.
Okay, that's fun.
It makes us laugh. Yeah. And I think that's always a good way to start.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, great message. I really enjoyed the message.
Thank you.
It was very inspiring, so the name's appropriate, inspirational message.
Good. Check.
Check. Right? And I particularly enjoyed the story of the prodigal daughter. I've heard that story before, but I don't know that I've heard you share it in, the detail that you did, because I could really see myself there.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. Well, it is, a good story is worth retelling. It's a story. If you didn't hear it, you can catch the story on Sunday's premiere. And I really think that we all have a prodigal story, because that is the human condition and the human experience that we've actually contracted for and called forth. And so I wanted to share that story, not only because it's a good story and it's kind of funny, but it actually illustrates the courage that it takes to go on this journey of separation, and the courage that it takes to come to ourselves and to decide to come home. And so that's really why I wanted to kind of springboard off of your message from last week, where you started with the prodigal son. And I thought, well, we all have a prodigal story. So part of joining together in this type of platform is that anybody else have a story similar or could relate to that experience, you can go ahead and
just type in yes over here in the chat.
And just kind of chat about it and share yourselves with us.
Type in yes if you've got a prodigal story of your own or know somebody that does.
Yeah. And the title of the message, or part of the concept, is that it's the heart that calls you home. It's the heart that calls you home. And in that particular story, it's the voice of my mother calling me home that I actually hear. And she's calling me by my name. And it's when I finally hear that voice that I muster up the courage to come home. And I guess the reason I bring that up is that on the day when we are recording this tomorrow morning, I actually leave to go see my mom. And so her energy was kind of with me in that storytelling, and how grateful I am to have had the contract with her to be my mom in this experience, and to be the one that, whose voice was calling me home in this particular story. And she's having an experience where she's being called home, and I get to, sit with her and companion her and love on her over the next couple of days. So I'm really grateful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was particularly, interested in how you brought in the courage into it, because I'm not sure most people look at, traversing a spiritual path or joining a spiritual path as taking a lot of courage. I'm just getting images of Woodstock, and people just come in and just party and have fun and sing Kumbaya around the campfire. And, a spiritual path is supposed to be all love and roses and cute and cuddly bunnies and tree hugging and whatever. I mean, so where does courage come into being involved in a spiritual journey?
Well, the root of courage, the C-O-R in Latin, refers to heart. And so it's the heart that calls us home. And the idea that came forth in my contemplation of the message is that just having this human experience, just as the prodigal son asks for his inheritance and goes off to have an adventure of separation, just like we've gone off to have this adventure of separation, even that in of itself took courage to do. And it's that because there was some desire, there was some play there was something that prompted it. And I look at humanity and I look at you and my brothers and sisters, and I watch the news, and, over my lifetime, I have seen people go down pathways of separation, and I have seen them pick themselves up, dust themselves off, get back up, and recommit to a new life, or to a transformation, or some alchemization of their life. I think that I see a lot of courage and bravery in us. And when we study what you and I teach and what the True Thought principles are, is that this is the way of the heart, and that it's the heart that calls us home. And it's a way of evolving from the intellect and the idea that the mind is what will lead us home. And it's a shift to surrendering to the heart. And the heart is the willingness to feel everything, to embrace everything, to love everything, to trust and allow everything. And why is that important? It's important because we called forth these experiences. The first step of awakening, and you brought this up last week, is that nothing occurs in our experience except that which we've called forth, and that the thoughts that we think are things and they create our experiences, yet the events are neutral. And part of courage, it takes courage to look at what we've created with love and with innocence, and then to pick and choose again. It takes courage, it takes heart in order to, look at what I made. And I think I'm going to go home. I think I'm going to stop trying to do this by myself. And I'm going to return home to that awakened mind that in a holy instant remembers its identity as being one with God, and that we return home. Does that answer some of the questions on courage?
It does. I think it's also for me, it was all, for most of my life, just the conversation around it would bring up the fear of, because of my indoctrination and traditional theology, was, this would be blasphemous to set those ideas aside, that I don't need to be afraid of God, that I'm not a sinner.
Or that you'll be punished because you went on this adventure.
That I won't be, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, absolutely, and sometimes, and I was pretty miserable in that, to be honest with you. And I literally just had to get away from it altogether from my own journey. But, and I was smiling a few minutes ago as you were sharing, because I do have my own prodigal son story.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll tell that in my next message. And I won't let the genie out of the bottle here, but
okay,
I might add that in my next inspirational message, because it's kind of an echo of being willing, to follow love, and also in that experience, being accepted home again, so to speak. So I might share that, but if I don't, we'll do it at some point.
Okay.
Right. But I think it's the courage of, even when we're miserable, it takes, and we know we need to make a change. And we've all heard those kinds of stories, a lot of those around relationships or working in the wrong place. You're miserable in your work, but you're afraid to leave.
Yes.
Because you're afraid without the money that you won't be okay, right? Or there won't be another job, or whatever we tell ourselves to stay stuck in the misery of it, of whatever we don't enjoy. And we have our guidance system, and you and I talk about that a lot, but we all have that inner guidance system. So how do we know, when we go to the heart, how do we read the heart? What comes to your mind when you think about the being connected in the heart and the courage?
I think it's a really good question, because at least with my background, my more recent background of being a religious science minister and studying the science of mind, we are always thinking and talking about our thoughts and changing our thinking, change our lives, and etc. And certainly, even A Course in Miracles is a mind retraining. We're retraining the mind, and that is important. But we're really shifting and evolving from what I would call manifestor consciousness, where we are using the laws of mind, the laws of thought, and we are releasing the control, and we're surrendering to the heart. And the heart can be unknown. The heart is, the intellect and the way that we've constructed our lives can be somewhat predictable. You follow this path, it leads you from point A to point B. And when you do this, you've arrived, right? The heart and part of having courage is to be non-conforming to the conditions of the world. So one of the definitions I brought forth in the talk and the message was, what is the opposite of courage? It's not cowardice, it's conformity. Mm-hmm. And so on the surface, we might say, what do I want? What do I desire? And on the surface, we might respond with a conditioned response. Mm-hmm. I want a big house. I want, a 6-figure income. I want the perfect partner. I want this career. I want ice cream. I want this particular car, and whatever the advertising has been, maybe it's a Tesla, maybe it's a Mercedes, but all of those surface level responses are conditioned, and we risk conforming, and then we risk not being true to what our true heart is. And so the practice is to keep asking. You asked, how do I access that? That we connect with spirit. And when we connect with spirit, our divine selves, we ask, what is the truth that I desire? What does my heart desire? And we keep asking that, and we get below the surface more to what our true desires are. Okay. And they tend to be qualities. They tend to be, I want to experience love. And I want to be a channel of love. Now, how you do that and how I do that will be different. The heart will lead us in different ways to what that is for each of us. And when we each follow our heart's desire, when we have the courage not to be pigeonholed according to our ideas from our family or our upbringing, when we have the courage to break free, to be free, and following that desire, following our heart, we can trust that it'll lead us right to the heart and mind of God that directs us perfectly. And we just follow what brings me joy, what brings me happiness, where's my bliss. You know it, we know it, do you not? And then you follow that. And that's the pathway home. So it's a joyful path.
Oh, absolutely. But it does set up, dare I say, it does set up opportunities for conflict, because the other, I have this picture in my mind of and maybe some of us have seen this before, but there's a guy there and he's got this little guy on his shoulder, and it's the devil, and on the other one is the angel is on the other shoulder. And it's like, which mind am I going to listen to? Right. And it really is almost like that. There's two voices within, and it's the intellect that you pointed out, which is the conditioned mind, and it certainly responds to the news, responds to the education, it responds to the upbringing of the parents and the grandparents and school systems and whatever. And it says, oh, you're supposed to do things a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously religion has a big part of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So when we venture off into, at least for myself, venturing off into a spiritual pathway was almost without any intention,
Mm-hmm.
because I was kind of hooked on it without recognizing I was being hooked on it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that my inner guidance system, that heart knowing self,
That feeling.
was
Yeah.
just saying, oh, this is interesting. And suddenly
Mhm.
a book falls off a shelf, you know,
Mhm.
or I just see something somewhere and it catches my eye and I open this book or I watch this video or whatever. And suddenly I'm seeing something new
Mhm.
that piques my interest. And so it wasn't a pathway that I literally approached with intention.
Mm.
I think
Mhm.
some people do, certainly. And I think your pathway was one more of intention. You had some experiences that I want to do this and, kind of went at it.
Mhm.
For me, it just kept revealing itself,
Mhm.
and then I got hooked. And then once I got hooked, well, then I couldn't set it down,
Mhm.
right? But there's been a lot of turmoil in my journey
Mm.
because I had to let go of relationships, of the desires that I had been conditioned
Yes.
with to go and do this. This is what being successful is. So this is how you live your life,
Mhm.
right? You got to have the right house, as you say, got to have the right partner, got to have the right car, got to have the right blah, blah, blah. Toys, in my case.
Mhm.
But letting those go was, troubling.
Mhm.
It was really troubling because it was
Mhm.
really like, just letting go, this, I'm getting the story now, the person's carrying his luggage and just
Mm.
finally saying, I'm going to a tropical place. Why am I carrying these heavy raincoats and these heavy winter coats? I can leave those behind.
Right.
So it's kind of like letting go. And that has been an uncomfortable part of my personal journey.
And that takes courage. So it takes courage to let go of those things because those things we believe keep us safe, keep us comfortable, are approved by the people around us. So it's a way that we might have status. And we're really being asked to let go of that.
A lot of things.
And that takes courage. It
Yeah.
takes courage to be so willing to what I always call be made new or to awaken or to live my life as an awakened being. So one of the things that we are talking about in True Thought is like, this isn't something that happens after you die and leave this place. This is something that happens every moment we just connect and remember our divine identity. And so we cultivate the heart and the desire, trusting that that's going to lead us
Mm-hmm.
more assuredly than the intellect would. Now, I'm not saying we don't require our intellect. I'm just saying that we bring that to a certain level of discipline, let's say, where I see that my thoughts are things, where I see that I can change the way that I think, which is really changing the way I believe, which is really changing my vibration, right?
Absolutely.
So that I can be more attractive to the things that I desire, that I think that I want. But it takes courage to let go of what I think I want and to allow my higher self, by following the heart, to show me what will bring me true, lasting joy and peace, and that I believe takes courage. But the part of the message is that we come in with that we have that within our being, that we have just used it or honed it for one goal. And now we're just switching the goal that we're dedicating our courage to. Now, you had mentioned on the map of consciousness that courage and integrity are in the same space or a close
The
space.
same level.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, we're going to be talking about levels of consciousness, and that's going to be several talks and discussions and some classes that are going to be coming up around that. But if it's like a roadmap, if I have a roadmap, you're going to go travel to see your mom.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't have a GPS, which is basically an electronic road map, or you didn't have a map, you know, and you've never been to someplace before, you might be wandering around all over the place trying to get to where you want to go.
And I've done that.
So it's really good to have a road map. I think we can all agree on that. And so levels of consciousness has been mapped out. And so that's part of our foundational teaching here at True Thought. So we're going to be getting into that. So that's something for us to look forward to. But the first level of regeneration, if I can call it that, versus degeneration, right? Below that level, you're devolving, or you're kind of stuck, and you're in an energy that is degenerative. In other words, you're not thriving and you're not growing. You're literally kind of dying, for lack of a better term, and you're kind of shrinking and limiting yourself. And so a couple of those might be fear or anger or hatred or shame. You know, you can feel those energies, you know, just by mentioning those words. And those are below that level. And that level is integrity and courage. And once we get to that point, the next step up we move is into willingness, which you were talking about, willingness. And that's a higher level. So it just keeps growing now once you get to that point. And anyone that's listening and joining True Thought, you're already there. If you're curious about where you are on the map, so to speak, of your conscious evolution, you wouldn't be participating in this conversation with us if you weren't already there. So, but that's where courage it comes in. It's like that threshold where things really start to change.
Well, I like that you put courage and integrity together, because really it's being courage as far as the heart. It's the courage to be authentic with self, capital S, self. And to be authentic with self is to be in integrity.
That's right.
And so it's having the courage to say what is so for you, what your truth is. It's the willingness then to surrender to the divine self and to be in alignment or integrity in mind, like surrendering the intellect, and then, which is really the body, mind, and its functioning, to surrender the mind that we align with the higher self, with the heart. And in that connection, we enter into a wholeheartedness. And so I say that we're all already very courageous beings.
Absolutely.
I say that that when we put our goal at the beginning, our goal, just like on the GPS, the goal of awakening, and then we already have the quality of courage, which sustains us as we begin to shift. One of the quotes that I use that I really love, and we can kind of end with this, is that as we follow our desire, you know, they become clearer. And so the quote is about the caterpillar. You know, how does a caterpillar become a butterfly? It has the desire to fly more than it has the desire to remain a caterpillar. And so really with our talk of awakening and the talk of divine self and divine identity, it's to tease us into, you know, I really want to return home to self, to divine self. I really want to be comfortable in my own skin. I really would rather fly than remain separate. I would really rather fly and soar and express my gifts than to conform and constrict and stagnate and
be stuck,
have the heart die.
And feeling like you haven't really fulfilled your purpose, or you don't know what your purpose was.
Yeah.
Or have regrets about your life.
Yeah.
All those things.
And so that's the we're just really shifting what our goal is now. Okay, caterpillar was great. Caterpillar was cool. I've been loving the caterpillars. They're beautiful, but they're destined for something more. And so are we.
Absolutely.
And so that's what, this inspirational message was about. That's what I'm happy to have this opportunity to kind of dig a little bit deeper with it. And, as Tony said, we welcome your comments.
We do indeed.
And we'll continue the conversation on a live interactive Zoom. Did you want to say anything else?
Well, it just occurs to me that maybe you might be asking yourself, okay, that all sounds good. So how do I do that? Was there something to do, that moves me along in that pathway, that I'm interested in pursuing? And it's like, absolutely. And what we call those attunements. And attunements are very similar to prayers. Prayers are attunements, right? But we do have a process of attuning, and we're going to be getting into that. And if you'll join us on the Zoom session tonight and, bring it up, then maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit tonight. But we got a lot of good stuff to talk about tonight. So I'll leave it at that. But there is absolutely a methodology that carries us along and begins to raise our vibration, as you said. It's a vibrational experience. A shift of consciousness is a change in vibration. And then we begin to see different results in our life that are witnessing to and validating, that we are moving in the right direction and evolving consciously.
Right. Yeah. And for now, it's really practicing what we've already introduced, which is the holy instant.
Yeah.
And as we practice the holy instant, as we join with spirit as divine self, we simply ask, what is my heart's desire?
That's right.
We just begin to be interested in it. We just begin to cultivate a curiosity about, well, what does tickle my fancy? What does, bring me joy? It's really that simple. And that begins the pathway home.
It does indeed.
Because it is the heart that calls us home.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again for the
Thank
message.
You.
It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And thank you for being present.
Thanks.
We love you.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll close now with inside the message. This episode, I think, is complete. And
it's complete.
And we look forward to gathering with you on the Zoom session afterwards. If you can make it there, we appreciate you and love you and hope to see you there.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great
you.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye.